Okay, so get this. Syria. You guys sent in a ton of articles, and wow, things are happening fast over there. Like history in overdrive, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
After 54 years, since 1971, the Assad family's rule is over. Like, gone.
Yeah, just like that.
It's insane. In a surprisingly fast rebel offensive, Damascus has fallen, Assad's fled, and this group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, they're taking over. It's wild. We've got reports coming in from everywhere, Al Jazeera, the Global Conflict Tracker, BBC, even CBN News.
Wow, CBN, really?
Yeah, and they're all saying the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Assad's power was way more shaky than anyone thought.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly it all unraveled.
So that's what we're going to deep dive into today. What exactly happened? Who are these new guys in charge? And what does it all mean for Syria, the region, and, the world?
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack here.
Totally. So first, let's talk about how this all went down. The rebel offensive started just 2 weeks ago, on November 30th, when they took Aleppo.
Oh, wow, just like that.
Yeah, and then boom, boom, boom. They just kept advancing. By December 8th, Damascus had fallen. It was shockingly fast. No one, not even like the super-secret intelligence agency, saw this coming.
I mean, no one really expected it to happen this quickly.
Exactly. It really shows how weak Assad's hold on power had actually become. I mean, the people in Damascus were ecstatic. There are videos of people celebrating in the street, taking pictures to send to their families that had to flee the country.
Yeah.
And there are huge lines at the borders, people trying to get back in. It's amazing.
So they feel safe enough to go back now.
Yeah, I mean, some do, some don't. Like one guy, a music producer named Hadi Akil, he stayed in Damascus the whole time, and he said, I feel immense pride in being part of a resilient people who have become a global symbol of resistance and defiance.
That's powerful.
Right. But it's not all sunshine and roses, because there's also been some looting, lawlessness, that kind of thing, in some areas at least. And there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty about the future, obviously.
Makes sense. I mean, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, exactly. Plus, there's this whole thing with the prisons, like Assad's most notorious prison, Saidnaya.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that place. Not good.
No, not good at all. So the rebels opened it up, and a bunch of prisoners have been released. But there are all these rumors about lower levels, hidden levels, where who knows what's been going on, and some families, they still haven't found their loved ones.
Oh, man, that's heavy.
Yeah, it really adds this whole other layer of complexity to the situation. I mean, even with Assad gone, it's clear that Syria's got a long, long road ahead.
For sure. So tell me about this HTS group. They seem to be the main players now, right?
Right. So HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they're the leading rebel group. But here's the thing. They used to be known as the Nusra Front, which was like an al-Qaeda affiliate.
Whoa, hold on. So they went from al-Qaeda to what exactly?
Right, that's the big question. They're trying really hard to rebrand themselves as more moderate. Their leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, he's even going by his real name now, Ahmed al-Shara, trying to distance himself from the past.
So a serious image makeover.
Yeah, big time. And to be fair, they've been doing some things to make themselves seem more inclusive. They've offered amnesty to Assad's soldiers, pledged to protect religious minorities, even had meetings with Christian communities to reassure them.
Interesting. Are they trying to gain international recognition?
I think so, yeah. But it's a tough sell, given their history.
Yeah, for sure. So they're walking a tightrope here, trying to consolidate power, reassure a wary world, A&D somehow manage a country that's been shattered by war for over a decade. That's a tall order.
No kidding. And the whole international recognition thing, that really depends on their actions, not just their words.
Makes sense. Words are cheap.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. They've made some bold moves, but they're playing a very dangerous game. And the stakes are incredibly high, not just for Syria, but for the entire region.
So we were talking about all the different ways things could go in Syria now, what the future holds.
Yeah, it's like a total guessing game, right? I mean, how can you predict what's going to happen in a place like the Middle East? It's so unpredictable.
Yeah, well, it is tough for sure. But you can look at the players, like who's who, what they want, what happened in the past, and kind of start to see some patterns, some possibilities.
Yeah, like you can put together some pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly.
But it's a puzzle where the pieces are constantly like morphing into something else. We've got HTS trying to, solidify their power. And then Iran, Turkey, all wanting to call the shots. And then the rest of the world's like, what do we do now?
Yeah, no shortage of cooks in the kitchen, that's for sure.
So, okay, let's say best case scenario. What does that even look like?
Well, I guess the best case is some kind of peace. Fragile, probably. but peace nonetheless.
Okay, but how?
So HTS somehow, and this is a big somehow, they go from being, militants basically to being like a real government, like a legit governing force. They got to walk the walk on all that inclusivity stuff they're talking about, become less extreme, actually try to rebuild the country.
That seems like a lot to ask for. I mean, these guys were like hardcore Al-Qaeda, right?
It is a huge ask, no doubt. But there are some things that could help them along, maybe. Like, they are showing they can change. I mean, breaking with Al-Qaeda was a big deal. And all this rebranding, that takes effort. Plus, let's be honest, they've got to know that keeping Syria stable is the only way they stay in charge, right? Otherwise, it'll be chaos, and some other country's going to be like, time to step in.
So they're actually incentivized to keep the peace.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about it. If they managed to pull this off, it would be huge, not just for Syria, but for the whole area.
Huh.
A stable Syria, no more Assad. That could inspire other countries to, ditch their dictators, try for something better.
That's kind of a mind-blowing thought. But, okay, that's the best case, rosy picture. What about the opposite? What if it all goes south?
Right. Well, the flip side is that it all falls apart. HTS can't hold things together, everyone starts fighting each other, and Syria basically explodes.
And that would be bad, obviously. But, like, how bad?
It would be a disaster, a humanitarian nightmare. The kind of place where groups like ISIS just thrive. It would be a huge setback in the fight against terrorism, a resurgence of violence, people fleeing their homes, and that ideology spreading everywhere. It would be bad news for everyone.
And the Kurds, they would be caught in the middle of it all.
Yeah, definitely. They'd be in a really tough spot. Already getting pressure from Turkey, and a fractured Syria would make them even more vulnerable. And they've been key allies in the fight against ISIS, remember? So if they're weakened, that's bad news for everyone trying to stop those guys.
Ugh, it feels like no matter what happens, there's going to be a whole bunch of fallout. It's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it's complicated for sure. But that's why we got to try to understand it, right? Because what happens in Syria doesn't just stay in Syria. It affects everyone, the whole region, the whole world even.
Okay, so we've talked about the best case and the worst case. But what about something in between?
That's where things get really interesting. Like, imagine Syria kind of stuck in this limbo. Unstable, yeah, but not full-blown war, just kind of simmering with, like, bursts of violence here and there, but no clear winner, just a constant grinding struggle.
Like a frozen conflict.
Exactly. HTS kind of in charge, but barely. Always getting challenged by someone. And the rest of the world just, I don't know, trying to manage it all.
And the people actually living in Syria? What would it be like for them?
Ugh, it would be rough. Living in constant fear, never knowing what's coming next. The economy would be wrecked. Probably violence all the time, no basic services. Syria would be this broken place, just barely holding on.
That sounds awful. But it feels like maybe the most likely outcome, honestly.
Yeah, it's a real possibility, and it just underscores how much they need a political solution, some kind of agreement.
But is that even possible? I mean, everyone wants something different. No one trusts each other.
It would be incredibly difficult. Everyone would have to compromise a lot. And right now, no one seems ready to do that.
So it sounds like we're looking at a whole range of possibilities, from kind of sort of peace to total chaos and everything in between. And what actually happens depends on, well, everything. What HTS does, what the big countries decide to do, and of course what the Syrian people themselves do.
Yeah, you got it. It's this crazy mix of factors all pushing and pulling, and no one knows how it's going to end up.
That kind of brings us back to, our listeners. Why should they care about all this? It seems so far away.
It's not as far away as you might think. What happens in Syria affects everyone, seriously. Like, remember the refugee crisis? Millions of Syrians had to flee their homes, and that put a strain on countries all over the world.
And that whole terrorism thing we were talking about. A messed up Syria could become a terrorist haven, and that's the threat to everyone, everywhere.
And don't forget the economy. The war in Syria has already shaken up global trade and oil prices. If things stay unstable, who knows what could happen? Higher prices, maybe even a recession.
So even if you don't live in Syria, you could still feel the effects. It's all connected.
Exactly. This isn't just some far-off conflict. It's something that could touch all of our lives in some way.
And on top of all that, there's the humanitarian crisis. People are suffering right now in Syria. While we're talking about politics and what ifs, there are real people who've lost everything.
Yeah, you're right. It's easy to get lost in the big picture stuff, but at the end of the day, this is about human lives. Millions of people have been displaced, families torn apart, kids traumatized, and so many lives lost. We can't forget about them.
It's hard to even imagine what they're going through.
One of the articles he sent talked about what it was like when the rebels took Saidnaya prison. Imagine the mix of emotions. The joy of those who were released, the desperate search for missing loved ones, the fear that some might never be found. It just shows how much this conflict has cost in human terms.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So what's being done to help these people? I mean, they need so much.
There are international organizations like the Red Cross and the UN. They're working really hard to provide aid and support, but it's tough. The country's infrastructure is destroyed, it's hard to reach some areas, and the needs are just massive.
And it's not just about helping them survive, it's about helping them rebuild their lives, their homes, schools, hospitals, everything.
Right. It's a massive undertaking, and the world needs to step up and help. We can't just turn away.
This isn't just Syria's problem, it's everyone's problem.
Exactly. And it's not just about governments and big organizations either. Individuals can help too. Donate to charities, talk about what's happening, support refugees. Every little bit counts.
It feels like such a huge problem. What can one person really do?
You'd be surprised. Small actions multiplied by millions of people can make a real difference. Every bit of help matters. Every voice raised in support matters. And that brings us to a really important point. As we think about what might happen in Syria, we have to remember that the future isn't set in stone. It's not predetermined. What happens next depends on the choices that HTS makes, the decisions of world leaders, and yes, even the actions of everyday people.
So we're not just watching this unfold, we're part of it.
Exactly. And that's a big responsibility. We need to stay informed, to talk about this, to think about what we can do. We all have a role to play in shaping a better future for Syria and for the world.
That's a powerful thought. So what's next? What are we diving into now?
Now we're going to try to imagine what a Syria without Assad actually looks like, what kind of society could emerge, what are the challenges and the potential pitfalls.
So we've talked about, well, a lot. How Assad fell, HTS taking over, all the power plays in the region, what might happen next. But now let's try to really picture it. What's a Syria without Assad actually going to be like? What kind of society, What are the chances for something good, and what are the things that could go wrong?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It keeps me up at night, honestly. This is all new territory, right? The old way is gone, and the new one, who knows? It's exciting, but also kind of scary,
Totally. So, okay, HTS. They're the ones calling the shots, at least in Damascus. What kind of Syria do they want? Are they serious about all this, like rebranding stuff, or is it just a show?
Everyone's wondering that. On the surface, they're saying all the right things, amnesty for Assad soldiers, protecting minorities, even talking about a more open political system.
So, trying to look all moderate and reasonable? A far cry from the whole al-Qaeda thing. But can we believe them?
That's the big question. Actions speak louder than words, right? And so far, it's a mixed bag. Some good gestures, yeah. But also reports of crackdowns, limiting free speech, and some places they're enforcing strict Islamic law.
It's like they're trying to do two things at once.
Yeah.
Look good to the world, but also, grab power and push their ideology.
Exactly. And that tension, that's going to define their rule. It's a huge gamble for them. Too much repression. People will rebel. Things could explode again.
But if they actually do reform, become more inclusive, they could actually make this work, become a legit government. It's wild to think about, given their past, but maybe.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it? A reformed HTS leading a new Syria. And think about the impact, not just on Syria, but the whole region. It could be like a blueprint for change, a beacon of hope.
Okay, so that's one possibility.
Yeah.
But what if they fail? What if they can't hold on to power, or they just don't deliver on their promises?
Then things get really dangerous really fast. We could see Syria spiral back into violence, different groups fighting for power, the country splitting apart along religious or ethnic lines. It could be a disaster.
Yeah, we've seen that happen before, right? In Iraq, Libya, places where the government collapses and everyone rushes in to grab what they can.
Exactly. It's a recipe for chaos. Humanitarian crisis, groups like ISIS coming back strong. It would be a nightmare for Syria and for the whole world, frankly.
And what about the rest of the world? Will they try to do something or just, I don't know, watch it burn?
That's the big question. And honestly, nobody knows the answer. The U.S. has a new president, Russia's more assertive than ever, Turkey has its own agenda, and Europe's a mess. It's complicated.
So many different players, all wanting different things.
Right. And we got to remember, the international community doesn't always get it right. Sometimes intervening helps, but sometimes it makes things worse.
So getting involved could actually backfire and make Syria even more unstable.
It's definitely a risk. That's why the world needs to tread carefully here. Any action has to be well thought out. with clear goals and a realistic understanding of what could go wrong.
And it can't be about imposing a solution from the outside. It has to be about empowering the Syrian people to decide their own future.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's their country. They've suffered the most, and they're the ones who will have to live with the consequences, whatever they are.
And that brings us back to, like, what does all this mean for us, the people listening? How do we even make sense of all this? And what can we do about it?
That's a question we all need to ask ourselves. We can't just ignore what's happening. Stay informed, talk about it, support groups doing good work on the ground, advocate for refugees. There's a lot we can do.
It's easy to feel powerless, like, what difference can I make?
Trust me, you can make a difference. Every little bit adds up. When millions of people do something, even something small, it becomes a huge force for change. And that's what I hope people take away from this. Syria's in a tough spot, yeah, but there's still hope. If we stay engaged, speak up, and work together, we can help build a better future for Syria and the world.
That's a great message. And this whole conversation, it's been a real eye-opener. Syria's story isn't over, but hopefully we've helped people understand it a little better. Thanks for listening, everyone.